So before I ask for questions, and I want to assure you that when you're speaking, we will not be recording, so you're not going to be up there in perpetuity on YouTube, YouTube, our YouTube channel. I want to comment a little bit about Wenda's talk. It was really a wonderful talk because, she really pointed out sort of the double nature of this thing. There's this incredible suffering going on around us, and for some of it's more obvious. We have someone here who's from Barcelona, and Barcelona, it's like New York City. It's been horribly hit. It's just really awful, and so she's really seen the suffering around her in a way that those of us from Kansas, which is most of us, those of us living in Kansas, have not seen. But the quiet, the fact that you can hear birds and things like that, I think this has been noticed around the world, the relative lack of pollution. And so there's this sort of weird thing where on the one hand there's this terrible suffering, and on the other hand there are these things that are quite pleasant. And we have this feeling that we should not be taking pleasure if there's suffering, and that if there's suffering, we should not acknowledge pleasure. My teacher used to say that if you want something, you can't have anything. If you want something, you won't get anything. If you don't want anything, you get everything. And I know when I first heard it, I think when everyone first hears something like that, they think, oh, I'm going to get all the gold and all the diamonds and all the chocolate and all the flowers and all the bird song and whatever it is that I like in this world. That's how you hear it, right? You get everything. Oh yeah, I want everything. But everything means everything. It means the stuff we like, and it means the stuff we don't like. It means the really terrible suffering that's going on all the time. There's always suffering everywhere. There's always suffering. We just ordinarily don't see it. There's always suffering. And also there's always blue sky, spring flowers, all of that stuff. And they don't oppose each other. They're part of this whole. They're part of this whole universe. And it's very important to recognize that. And every time we taste the things that give us pleasure, to hold in mind that suffering. And every time we personally are suffering, to hold in mind the joy that exists as well. To not be trapped in our own joy, to not be trapped in our own suffering. But, like that old spiritual says, have the whole world, hold the whole world in our hands, not just part of it. Not that part, but the whole world all at once. So thank you, Wenda, for your talk. And now I'm going to ask, are there any questions? So the question is, what kind of pain is it? So I should say that the question that was asked was, what do you do when you have pain when sitting? So the thing you have to ask yourself is, what kind of pain is it? If it's lactic acid buildup, which is that kind of burning sensation that as soon as you stand up, it's gone, it's no problem. You can sit through it. If your mind is so tormented by the pain that you can't focus on your practice, then what you should do is you should stand up and hold your hands like this and wait till the pain goes away and sit down again. If it's not lactic acid buildup, if it's something that's really structural, and that even when you get up, it's still causing problems, then you have to look at it more carefully. You have to look at your posture. You have to look at, are you sitting on your sit bones? I can't really, let me move the computer a little. Let's see. There we go. Are you sitting on your sit bones, which are right under there? Or are you sitting forward, which I tend to do, and it's very bad. Are you sitting on your sit bones? Is your back being does it have that natural S curve that it should have? Are your shoulders comfortable or are they tense? Are you slumped forward? Things like that. Is your mudra relaxed and comfortable? Is it tense? Is it too relaxed? Is it a place that's comfortable? Some people think they have to hold the mudra up there, and then after a while, it's like they start shaking, right? So then you have to just sort of check, and it's really unfortunate because we are now in lockdown, so you can't go to your friendly neighborhood Zen teacher or your friendly neighborhood person who's been practicing Zen for a long time and say, hey, can you check out my posture? We can't do that right now. But you can ask yourself, like, for example, we always say to tuck the chin in, and most people don't realize that the reason is that the way you balance your head on your spine best is if the roof of your mouth is parallel to the ground, not your jaw. If your jaw is parallel to the ground, your head is too far back. So you want the roof of your mouth parallel to the ground. Okay, and it's little things like that. So if it's a persistent problem that doesn't go away when you get up, then you have to inspect. And unfortunately, right now you have to do it yourself because there's no one that can help you with it. You just have to check your posture. And the key things are sitting on your sit bones. I find it very helpful to feel like there's a string right here that's pulling me up. So that tends to align the spine very well when your sit bones are aligned well. And then having the roof of the mouth parallel to the floor. So you try that. And yes, sometimes people have body problems that mean that they might have to get up every 5 minutes, stand for a couple of minutes, then sit down again. There's also like your leg posture. You can go online and find a gazillion postures for sitting. If you write to me, I can send you the quantum page on that, which is a little hard to find online. It's very helpful. They have nice photographs and stuff on sitting postures. So yeah, it's right. Yeah, my legs used to fall asleep for like 25 years. And then you have to get up for walking meditation and you just kind of fall over. So yeah, great, good luck. Keep trying, and write to me or write to some other teacher, if you have questions. So the story is the original story, and it's a very old story, probably predates Tang Dynasty China, is that there's a cow that eats a grain of rice. And the cow becomes hungrier and hungrier, and it keeps eating more and more and more. And eventually it eats all the plants, all the animals, all the human beings, all the planets, all the suns, all the stars, moons, whatever, galaxy clouds, whatever. The whole universe is inside this cow. And the question is, how do you get out of this cow? So I think the question that was asked was about the Zoom universe versus the regular universe. And the person who asked the question started out by saying that they had done a Zoom retreat and Zoom practice, and it was just like regular practice. And then when they were off Zoom, the trees were still we're still getting leaves, and the flowers were blooming, and the sky was blue, and so on. But then in Zoom, because that's where the work world is, that's where you have to give exams, and that's where suddenly it becomes difficult. And so how do we get out of the Zoom world? Don't make anything, okay? Don't make anything. So right now we're on Zoom. And then we're going to go into breakout sessions and we'll talk to each other, and the people say, oh, it's time for me to have lunch. Or maybe if they're in Barcelona, they'll say, oh, it's time for me to go to sleep. Or if they're in Montreal, they'll say, oh, it's time for me to have my afternoon tea, whatever. So right now this is what we're doing. And then later we'll be doing something else. And everyone's reaction to this technology is very different. Some people have a very difficult time with it. Some people think it's wonderful. My first reaction was that it's wonderful. And now that I've been doing it so much, some days when I'm on it a lot, there might be something I want to do later on Zoom and I don't because I'm zoomed out. There were all these studies about what happens when you watch pixels and the little tiny faces and the big faces and all of this kind of stuff, you know, human psychology and everything like that. I'll tell you what I miss. I miss chanting with people. I miss breathing together with people, which is what happens when you sing and you chant with people. You can't do that on Zoom because of time lag. Even in conversation, if you're sensitive, you'll notice the time lag. But here we are. If it weren't for this technology, we'd all be isolated, either alone or with our partner, and that would be it. We wouldn't be practicing with anybody in any way, in any shape or form. So here we are. And what we're going to do with this and how, I do want to mention a couple of Zoom hints for people who are uncomfortable with it. You can move it so that you can see other people, but they can't see very much of you. You can sit sideways to it. You can even turn your back to it at certain times if you want to. You can blank your screen. I know that, you know, there are people who have a very hard time just visually with it. There are ways to deal with it. And, you know, we're talking about this in our Sangha, and I'm not saying this is the way to deal with it. If you do have trouble with Zoom, I want to hear from you so we can figure out how we can make it better. We don't know how long we're going to be like this. I think it's going to be months, personally. I think if we're going to be responsible, it's going to be months. But our Sangha will talk. We're going to have a board meeting at some point fairly soon. The Board of Trustees of the Quantum School of Zen is going to meet and talk about this, hopefully within a month. The Executive Committee of the Quantum School of Zen is talking about it. I'm in touch with a lot of clergy people in town. I'm part of a small ministers group, Lawrence Interfaith Alliance, and people have been sharing what their congregations are doing. And it looks, just from the way people are reacting, it looks like it's going to be quite a while. I wish it were otherwise, and maybe we'll be lucky, maybe it will be otherwise. But yeah, so I want to go back to the original Tang Dynasty story because that's a really good one. Yeah, so there's this cow that, you know, starts with a little grain of rice, and then it eats like a little more and a little more and a little more, and pretty soon the field is gone, and pretty soon the next field is gone, and then there's this yummy forest that it eats up, and then it goes in the ocean and drinks all the ocean and eats all the fish, and just kind of on and on and on, and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and here we are, we're all in this cow's belly. How do you get out of this cow's belly? And I'm not going to say any more about it. I'm just going to say that's a really good thing to look at. That's what we call a kungan. You know, we have these little stories, and you can analyze them. Oh, the cow represents, but that's not how to do it. You just look at this question, this fantastical, ridiculous situation. Most of them are very common sense, but this is a fantastical, ridiculous situation. Like, you went to this cow, if you ate the whole universe, where is the cow, right? You know, your mind can go there if you want, but let's just think about it. We're all in the belly of this cow. How do you escape this cow's belly? It's a really good question.